Good morning, everyone. Actually, afternoon and evening for my guests today. I'm Ione Butler, and I'm the founder of Uplifting Content, and I'm so excited to have this conversation with the lovely and inspiring Debra Searle. How are you today?
Good, thank you. Yeah, it's evening here. We're all about to go to bed. Well, not
I
quite.
know. Well, I'm glad we managed to work this out. It's taken a little while to get on the call, but we've done it. And we have matching beautiful backgrounds, colorful backgrounds.
Check this out.
That's how we roll. So before we get started, and Debra talks about herself and says what we're going to say today, for anybody out there, we've got a couple of announcements. Debra is giving away 5 copies of her book, The Journey, How to Achieve Against All Odds, and it's going to be about the things that we're talking about today. So we're giving away 5 of those on this call. So if you've got any fantastic questions for Debra, if you've got any thoughts, comments, something that you want to share, comment, share, like this post, and we'll be announcing those book giveaways throughout the live stream. So that's exciting. Thank you, Debra, for that. And yes, and the other thing is Debra also has a guide, life upgrade guide. So she'll talk about that too, but you can sign up. There's a link on the live, so you can sign up for that too. So Debra, now that all that's out of the way, hello.
Hello. I'm trying to find us on Facebook. Oh, no, here we are.
Oh, did you get it? Did you get it? I was telling her. So everyone, we're sharing this live. So she's sharing it to her pages. I'm going to share it to some of my pages too. And if you think it will be valuable for people, share away. But yeah, Debra, I like to, rather than me do a bio introduction for someone, it would just be great for you to introduce yourself and tell everybody about sort of what you do and your story.
Okay, so I'm Debra. I'm 42. I'm from England. I feel like I'm starting like a dating show or something.
Have you seen my How to Find a Boyfriend video? I'm all about dating at the minute.
I was impressed. I was seriously impressed.
I don't intentionally make it like this. I'm sorry.
So I'm Debra. I'm from England, and I had a really life-transforming experience in my kind of mid-20s when I ended up unexpectedly rowing single-handed across the Atlantic Ocean, as you do. It wasn't planned that way. I was actually rowing with my now ex-husband, who was this kind of massive 6'5", fantastic rower. He rowed internationally at club level, and I'd never even rowed before, but we'd set out to take part in this international rowing race across the Atlantic. And unfortunately, he had to be rescued very early on, and I chose to go on alone, not knowing at that point that it was going to mean spending another 3 months completely alone, no boat following me, just in this little tiny plywood rowing boat. And it was life transforming because it taught me how to master my mindset, I suppose. That, as I said, I hadn't rowed, so I didn't have the skill. I'm not particularly big, so I didn't really have the strength. So I ended up relying on my attitude and my mindset an awful lot. And when I came back to England, I vowed that I would start implementing that, using those same tools and techniques when I got back onto dry land. And it was phenomenal, the shift within a year. I went from being a PE teacher to, within a year, I started working with the British Royal Family. Now, number of years on, over 15 years on, I've founded 4 companies. And I've just seen this constant evolution in what I'm able to achieve because of, I guess, what I was forced to discover about myself and about how to keep mentally strong while I was on those big waves. And when I'm not, when I'm not running the companies, I'm a mum. I've got 2 gorgeous little girls who are 7 and 9, and a fantastic husband, Tim. But life is busy and it's really full, and that's how I love it. But we have the 3 companies now that's still going strong out of the 4. We've got an online business called yourspeakingcareer.com, where we teach people to speak more confidently, public speaking, but we also help people to get established onto the international speaking circuit and make a really lucrative living as a speaker. We've got a consultancy business called Mix Diversity Developers, and we help large global organizations to become more diverse places for their employees to be, and help people feel a bit more included. More often than not, what that looks like is we help organizations get women into more senior positions. And then we have an expeditions and media company, which of course is still my baby. So I'm still going on the expeditions, and sometimes we, in the past, we've taken the BBC along and made beautiful documentaries out of them. We write books, we do media deals, and we get sponsors from big corporates and use the lessons learned along the way to influence and motivate company workforces worldwide. And our clients are typically people like Nike and HSBC and those big kind of giants of organizations. So life is busy and full.
Yes, one of the things, I mean, there's so many things that I want to ask about, but one of the things is, how do you manage it all? The businesses and family and all these adventures.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've worked with some phenomenal people. I run all of this with my identical twin sister, and that has been a huge benefit to me over the years, because she's...
You literally have a double of yourself.
I do have a double, but we have skills in different areas, and together they kind of match.
Perfect.
It works well. I've got a fantastic team as well in the office who work with us. I've got an incredibly supportive husband who completely shares the workload when it comes to bringing up the children, and I think that makes a massive difference. So he's the stable one that's here often. He's a very successful engineer, but he works his hours around the school run if I'm working overseas. So we just juggle, a lot of juggling. Doesn't always work, but we're juggling a lot.
It's teamwork, and it's willing to make it work for each other. That's incredible. So many questions. First of all, about your rowing across the Atlantic. Wow. Was there a time where you ever like terrified for your life?
Yeah, there were so many of those, because it was...
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it was 111 days at sea, and of course within that time frame I had my flat calm days, but I also had I had 2 hurricanes that came through during that period. So, you know, mountainous seas the size of apartment blocks racing towards you. I had quite a few evenings in the dark when I could see sharks around the boat, and the combination of the dark and sharks, which are 2 of my least favorite things, was a bad one. But there were also these massive highs, you know, where you just see this marine life that is so spectacular, and have more time to think and process life and stuff than anyone can ever choose to have, really. Because if you think about it, there's probably only, you know, a handful of people in the whole world who've spent more than 100 days completely alone anywhere. And so it's quite a privilege to have had the chance to do that. And it's amazing when we get this space from society and the busyness of social media and our world as it is now, how much we can retrieve from our memory banks, and how much we get to process stuff that ordinarily I don't think we have the time to do.
What was one of the key things that you, in those moments of solitude, like a takeaway on life that you got, like the most profound thing maybe?
Gosh, that's a really hard question, because there were so many.
I'm sure there's lots, or just some.
I suppose it was that I could set myself significantly bigger goals than I had appreciated I could, you know. And I think I was your typical, I didn't do very well at school. I was more interested in boys and sport. I left with not great qualifications. And I think for myself and the people around me set these kind of limiting beliefs on, well, this is what you're able to achieve. You know, so I went into being a PE teacher because that's what everyone else told me I should do. And I just had never really pushed myself outside my comfort zone. The Atlantic proved to me that I could do that. You know, I think I probably pushed myself further outside my comfort zone than I ever thought it was possible for a human to even survive for that long alone. And I came back with a completely different view about goal setting. I got much more ambitious and structured. I suppose I started to do it the way I did it at sea. You know, at sea I would plot my position on this big Atlantic chart of where I'd come from, and then I'd be aiming towards a goal, which was always my next line of longitude, so I knew where I was going. And I'd never really done that in life. So I came back and I started to write annually once a year, a much clearer set of goals based around 6 principles: my health, my work, my relationships, fun, financials, and giving back to society. And I still do that. So once a year I break away. I normally do it in the week between Christmas and New Year, that kind of funny lull period, and go and sit in a coffee shop somewhere and get out this template, which you're very welcome to hand out to everyone.
That's the life upgrade guide template.
Yeah, life upgrade guide. And I write that once a year. I do a review in it is a review of the previous year, because you can't possibly decide where you're going until you're really aware of where you are now. So there's a review part of it. And then there's a section of it on that really breaks down for me working out what I want to achieve for the next year. And I'm so much more ambitious now about setting goals for myself, because I think we can probably all achieve way more than we think we can.
Right. No, I agree. I agree. So I was just trying to get some comments up on this video too. So when it came to so yeah, knowing that you could do far more than you ever thought, I think that's true. There's so many limiting beliefs that we have, and what I loved about you did a fantastic TED talk. In your TED talk, you talk about, we don't make these choices. We don't choose to go through these tough times, and so it's when you're in that, how do you deal with that? When it came down to your Andrew leaving, what was you deciding to stay and then continuing to go all the way through? What was that? Like, did you know, like, I'm definitely staying, this is happening? Or did you kind of have to force yourself, and then the getting through? What was the thing that made you just keep going and not be like, I'm just going to stop doing it?
Well, partly it was because I genuinely loved it out there. I've always loved adventure and expeditions. And I suppose there was this awful thing of, if I don't try and do this alone, then I will live with this regret for the rest of my life. And so I knew I had to try. And very early on, that I noticed there was this correlation between what I thought about, and that then affected how I felt about, Andrew leaving or being there alone or the dangers. And then what I felt had a big impact on my actions. So what I thought about affected how I felt, and that in turn affected how I acted. And the result of that action was either positive or negative, depending on what I first thought about. And so it became apparent very early on that if I was going to keep going and make this decision to carry on without Andrew, that I was going to have to completely hijack the old Debra way of thinking, this kind of full of limiting beliefs about what I could achieve. And that really was then what I spent the next 3 months focused on, was what are those attitude, tools and strategies? What does that look like for me to hijack this old way of thinking, the negative Debra way of thinking of, well, this can't be done. And it did, and it was very easy to jump to the it can't be done conclusion, because I remember at the time the race organisers saying, oh, more people have been to the moon than had rowed across an ocean and lived. And so knowing that, and knowing that Andrew was going to be taken away and that I would be completely alone, it was hard not to focus on all the dangers. And so I had to keep hijacking my thinking constantly the whole way through.
So I'm just fascinated by your technique. I loved your TED talk with the choose your attitude thing. And I actually did it this morning, and I chose excitement, and it instantly made a difference. So could you explain to people what the choose your attitude is all about, and your book, The Journey, which kind of covers that, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what happened was there was a day out there when I was fixing something in the bottom of the boat, and I hadn't been looking up enough. And when I next looked up, there was this enormous container ship coming towards me, and I was kind of frantically trying to get out the way of it. And I just missed this thing, and I was hysterical afterwards. And I called up Hayley, my twin sister, who was project managing this, and I was screaming down the phone at her that she had to get me a rescue. Sisters can be very irritating, can't they? Because she kept on saying to me, Debra, you've just got to choose your attitude about this. And I remember at the time thinking, if you were here now, I would punch you really hard for this. But actually,
that's not what you want to hear, but yeah,
really
I needed to hear.
I did need to hear it. And actually, I think what really struck me when she said that was that nothing else out there I actually had a choice about. So I couldn't choose whether I got run over by a ship, or I often went backwards 30 miles, having spent 3 days just gaining those 30 miles. So I couldn't choose whether I got blown backwards, but I could always choose the attitude with which I bounced back from each of those problems. And so because I haven't got a very good memory, I turned it into an exercise that I did each morning. And I had this brain trigger, I called it, which was literally, I just wrote it on the cabin hatch, because that was what I looked at every day. I wrote, choose your attitude. And I'd look at that in the mornings, and I'd actually make myself pick one. And it had to be a positive one, because negative ones were banned from the boat. And so I'd pick, optimism or excitement or enthusiasm, or, one of those types of ones. And then the next bit was I had to list out loud, well, if you stuck to that, what would be the benefits? What would come from the day? And that routine of choosing my attitude for the morning, well, firstly, having a brain trigger, then choosing my attitude, and then listing the benefits, I've carried on doing. And so I've got new ones now, depending on where I am. When I'm working from home, it's when I first put the kettle on to make a coffee in the morning, and it's while I'm waiting for the kettle to boil. And something about pressing that button on the back of it seems to trigger me into asking myself the question. And it's this kind of being aware, I suppose, of that when we choose our attitude, it changes our beliefs, and it has a big impact on our thinking. And the important bit of it is actually the second bit. It's when you list the benefits, what you're doing is you're training your subconscious brain to look for those things to happen every day. And if I've listed them, then it's like I've already put my brain on autopilot. It's already there, trained in my brain, looking for those things to happen. So I've carried on using the Choose Your Attitude thing every day, and it was one of the big things I wrote about in my book, The Journey, which we're going to give away 5 copies of during this call.
Yes, we will. Let's do one now. Let's do some now. Let's read some comments. Hello, Leo. Leo is cool, and he's got a question for us. So we'll read some of these questions and comments, and then we'll give away some. So Leo says, how do you know you have chosen a goal that is reachable? I know we must aim high, but do we set ourselves up? But do we set ourselves up to prevent disappointment and regrets? Actually, this is a really good question. I would love to get your thoughts on it. How do we know that our goal is reachable? And can we set ourselves up to fail if it's not reachable?
Yeah. So we never truly know if a goal is reachable. But what we do know is that there's a filter in our brain called the reticular activating system, or we shorten it to RAS. And we know that in general, people tend to set goals that are actually within their comfort zone. They don't push themselves outside their comfort zone. So we can always achieve the goals we aim for. But when we set a goal, we work through the steps that it will take to get there. What we're doing is we're setting that RAS, that reticular activating system in our brain, to look for opportunities to make those things happen. An example of your RAS would be that when you drive somewhere and you park outside your house and you think, gosh, I've not thought about changing gear or the other road users at all, and I've somehow got home without crashing, because actually we're in this unconscious mode. Psychologists say 99.9% of the time. So there's 11 million bits of information in any second that our brain could be processing, but we're only able to process about 40. So if I said to you now, become conscious all of a sudden of the waistband on your jeans, you can feel that now against your tummy. Well, that bit of information was always there. It's just a moment ago, the RAS in your brain, well, it's only got 40 I can take in. That one's not important enough. So when we set these really big goals and we break down how we're going to achieve them, like I do on that guide that there's a link to, we're training our RAS to allow some of those 40 bits of information to be the important things that will help us to get to those really big stretch goals. And we need to put certain things in place as well as those, in order to make sure that we keep going with them. So it's not simply a case of saying, well, yes, that's what I'm going to do, training my RAS. We've got to put some structure around achieving these goals to help us to get there as well. And you're probably wondering what some of those things are already.
Yes, which I'm sure the book is going to be good, and then the life goal, and then the goals thing. But yeah, what are some of those?
No, some of the things that for me are really important is I think you've got to start the day in the right way. So that's why I have these brain triggers to remind me to choose my attitude. And we absolutely have a choice about that. It's one thing we always have a choice about. I think when for me, I have to take the goal visual as well. So there has to be points throughout the day where I can see the things I'm trying to get to. Right. So I guess because of that, I love mood boards. I should have put one within reach so I could have showed you, because there's loads in my office here. But I'm a big proponent of making up mood boards, because that really helps our brain when you really can visualize what it's going to be like. As well as pictorially seeing it, we can actually visualize it in our own mind. We run these movies in our head of what it's going to be like, feel like, smell like, taste like, to finally get to that goal. And when we start to do all these things, and they take, it's less than a minute, but when we start to incorporate some of these things into daily life, imagining them in those moments as if we've actually achieved it, we start to support our brain. We support ourselves rather than sabotaging ourselves in achieving these goals.
Yeah. I mean, I talk very openly about depression. It's something that I deal with on and off. And it was one of the reasons that I made Uplifting Content, started this platform to provide a platform to raise you out of that state. It's been on and off. Like recently, I've been dealing with it a lot. Just that one exercise about choosing your attitude in the morning has been such a fantastic thing for me already. And like the movies, playing the movies in your mind to kind of keep you going. Two very simple things that already I'm going to be taking on board. So
let me explain a bit more about that running the movie thing, because I think that's important to understand how that works. And it's a term I use instead of visualization, because I don't like words that are kind of psycho mumbo jumbo, because we hear athletes talk about visualization, but really what they're doing is they're running a movie in their head of the outcome they want to have. And there's a couple of really great ways that I like to think of that. For me, I know that if I try and imagine a scene from a movie I know really well, I can instantly picture it. So I always think about Tom Cruise in Top Gun singing "You Got That Loving Feeling" in the bar to Kelly McGillis, which is, your younger viewers will have no idea what I'm on about now, but it's going to be a remake. It's going to be brilliant. But I can instantly picture that scene, and he's singing to her in the bar and all these other guys join, and it's very embarrassing for her. And of course you feel the embarrassment when you watch the film, and that's the sign of a great actress, isn't it? When you can feel the emotion they're trying to portray. Well, what we're trying to do when we run these movies in our head is it's like running a scene from a movie that you want to happen in the future, but you want to be able to feel what it's going to feel like to get there. And the other real benefit of doing that is that it has, if there's difficult bits along the way in order to get there, if you run movies of those other difficult bits on your way to achieving your goal, it has the same impact on you as when you watch a scary movie for the second time. So if you find a scary movie on Netflix, you press play, you start watching this thing. When you get to the really scary bit, of course you jump, don't you? Because it's designed to make you do that. But if you put the same film on again, you press play, you start watching this thing. When you get to the really scary bit, of course you don't jump, because it's coming, and you're mentally and physically and emotionally prepared for it. You're kind of more in control of your performance. And that's what it's like when we run the movies, of the steps we're going to take in order to achieve a big goal. So maybe, for example, if you want to ask for a raise or a promotion or a pay increase or some other goal like that involves a really difficult conversation. When we run the movies of it, we see the reaction of the person, we see ourselves responding brilliantly, coming up with all the right things, practice how we're going to gesticulate, or seeing all of this in this movie in our head. When we get in there, it's great. You literally, it's like you can press play on your brain and your body, and it goes into autopilot, and you're automatically more in control of the performance in that particular conversation. So it's a really powerful thing to start using, and the more you do it, like with most things, the easier it gets and the quicker it gets. You can literally within 10 seconds I can run a movie now, and then it helps me in that moment.
Because I think the problem that I have, that other people have, is the movies that we play are not, they're the negative movies. They're things that we don't want, or like replaying arguments or all these other things that we're stressing or worrying about. And so it's not playing the movie that's designed for what you want. And I love that it's going through all the different scenarios. Because I had a girlfriend that was, I was suggesting a bunch of things, and she kept saying, yeah, but that's going to happen. And yeah, but that's going to happen. I was like, you always keep putting the negative. And she was like, well, I'm just being mindful. And I'm like, well, there's being mindful, but now you're talking yourself out of it. But what I like about what you're saying is you're not talking yourself out of it. You're saying this might happen, and then this is how I'm going to deal with it. And then this might happen, and that is it. So it's not talking about all the problems so that you freak out and you don't want to do it. It's talking about the problems and then figuring out how you overcome them. So when they arise, you know exactly what you're going to do, and you've covered it. And it's brilliant, really brilliant.
Yeah, and it's seeing yourself achieving it. You've got to see yourself positively in that moment achieving it. And sometimes when I watch these movies, I think I just don't have the confidence to do that. You kind of imposter syndrome and these self-doubts start coming in, and in those moments my little trick is that I often have to give myself an alter ego. So on the rowing boat I had this.
What was she called?
Well, she was I'm slightly embarrassed admitting this.
Well, she worked for you. You just have to embrace her.
In my mind, she looked like Xena Warrior Princess. I don't know if you ever saw this very old.
Yeah, she was awesome. Dressed very odd, but whatever.
Clad and, but she was this kind of Amazonian woman, and so in my mind, whenever I saw myself rowing on alone after Andrew, it became apparent Andrew had to be rescued from the boat. I would see myself as I'd see Zena in the boat. You know, she was me. And I had these big rippling muscles, and you know, I was at least 6 foot tall, and I gave myself a new name. I was Debra, warrior princess of the waves.
I know, it's awesome. It's awesome, though.
Yeah, that's what I needed, because I didn't have the confidence, I didn't have the skill or strength or any of those things, and so I needed in my head to make myself bigger and stronger than I was if I was going to carry on alone.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I like that. The topic of this is how your mindset, transforming your mindset to transform your life. And it's just these simple things, giving yourself a badass alter ego. If that makes you feel good and confident to get through when you don't, like, you just do what you need to do. So great tips. Okay, let's read some more comments. Leo, let's give a book to. He's awesome.
He's always on, isn't he? I think
he is. I love him. Yeah, so he's all engaged. I understand everything you were saying, and I know you are right, but in my head there is a voice saying you can't, you will fail. It keeps me back from taking that risk. Thoughts, Debra?
Yeah. So I mean, I think some of the things we've just already covered are helpful, is trying to incorporate some of those. But some other things I'd say is that it's important never to do these things alone. Right. And I think we have to surround ourselves with people who are really good at, what I would say, good at using their free words. Like, we have this abundant supply of free words. And are they people who use their free words positively or negatively? Do they even know what your goals and aspirations are? For me, I know probably one of the things that's had the biggest impact on my business life is been having a mastermind group that I meet with every 12 weeks. And these are 8 other entrepreneurial business women. We go away and stay together for 2 days, and hire a big Airbnb somewhere, and we grill each other on, what have you achieved in your business in the last 12 weeks? What do you want to achieve in the next 12 weeks? What's your biggest problem, and how are we going to solve it? And I don't think you need to be an entrepreneur or a business owner to do that. I think we can do it for our personal goals, using our friends and our family as our mastermind. When we incorporate the people who love and care for us the most into what we're trying to achieve, they're there to support us and lift us up and keep us going when we've lost that faith that we can achieve it.
I want to join one of those groups. Did you make that yourself, or it was just women that you knew and you got together, or that you collectively guys, or was it like part of a? Yeah, I want to join one. I'm just curious.
Yeah, they were actually already in the group, and I went to do some training for them, and then they asked me to join the group.
Oh,
so
fantastic!
That was a slightly different way, but there are obviously there's the lean-in circles. Sheryl Sandberg's.
Yes, I love her and her books. Yes,
which is the lean-in initiatives are a fantastic way. They're for women, so actually it's probably not good for any if that was a man asking that question. But I think for me probably the biggest support network outside of that mastermind group is actually my kids and my husband. Right. And when I make up my big vision boards of my goals, my kids always do them with me, cut them on paper, and we're sticking the pictures on. And so they know what my goals are. So I had a big goal last year to do a cycle from Barcelona to Valencia across Spain, to help me recover from a reconstructive surgery I'd had on my leg. And my kids made that vision board up with me, and it was brilliant, because on Sunday mornings when I'm lying in bed going, oh, I can't be bothered to get out of bed and train, they'd be like, come on mum, you said you were going to go. They know what my goals are. So you have to ask yourself, how many people really know what I'm trying to achieve? Who are the people that can really support me in making these things happen?
Right. Thank you. I'm going to check out that lean-in thing. Ellie is happy for the book. Mary says, keep on rowing, Debra. Woo, woo, woo. Alberto says, hello. Carrie says, yes, Debra, I love your mind and energy. Thank you for joining. Best wishes in all that you do. She also says, I think we personally know what we can aim for by being realistic, yet challenging yourself. Everyone will be different. Yeah, I get that point. Carrie also says, fight or flight mode is an interesting thing. I think you learn a lot about yourself when you push past what you feel you can and can't do. I think mistakes are necessary for growth. I think pushing yourself out of your comfort zone is extremely healthy, and you also realize the thought of comfort is just what your mind made up. So why can't you expand that comfort zone by being aware and conscious of shifting your mind and thoughts? We control what we want. Carrie, you're awesome. You're getting a book. Sorry, she's awesome too.
I think that's a really good point about the comfort zone, because when I chose to go on alone when I was rowing, I was so out of my comfort zone, and as soon as that yacht with Andrew on sailed away and I was surrounded by just water and knew that was going to be it, and there was going to be nobody else there to help me for the next however many months. I mean, I can't tell you how far I was outside my comfort zone. But do you know what? Within a couple of weeks, the comfort zone shifted. That became my new comfort zone. You know, it becomes a new reality for us. And so sometimes when I'm really outside my comfort zone, it's often just a case of saying, right, come on, Deborah, wait for the comfort zone to shift. You know, it will do. You know, it always does eventually. And that becomes the new norm. So it's a patience game sometimes. But I think this is, Carrie, was the same comment, but obviously you're right. You know, when we do push ourselves outside our comfort zone, and it is really challenging, it's always where the biggest growth happens. It's where the biggest opportunities are, where we learn to innovate because we're forced to, because we're dealing with stuff that we've never had to do before.
Right. Yeah. Saba says, how much does your book cost?
Oh, well, I think it's $12.99 on Amazon, but I don't know what it is
in pounds.
That's what you are. That's in pounds.
Well, we're gonna get you one, Saba. Thanks for the question. Rachel says, good evening, Steph. Woo woo. And yet we've got another link to your to the life upgrade guide. So guys, everyone can sign up for that. It's the links in the comments and in the description. What else have we got? Haley says, love the fact that you've been brave enough to have given yourself a life that hasn't followed the rules of fitting in a society shaped box. Yeah, that is awesome. Carrie says, expose yourself to your deepest fear after that. Fear has no power. And the fear of freedom shrinks and vanishes. You are free. Jim Morrison quote there. Thank you. Rachel says, good evening, ladies. Hey, Deb. You know Rachel Brinksman?
Yes, I do.
She's a friend of yours?
We had babies at the same time.
Oh, bless you. Does she have the book?
Yes, I think she does. Yes.
Okay, so you've already got one, Rachel, but hey.
If she hasn't, Rachel, I'll send you one. Sorry.
That's okay. So yes, guys, we're gonna take a couple more questions for Debra, and then I've just got a couple more questions for myself too. So I'm fascinated with all your businesses as well, and like the speaking thing, that's really cool. I want to get into speaking, and I actually turned down an event in London that's coming up because I just feeling like a bit of a fraud, really, that kind of imposter syndrome of who am I to say anything, and then also not feeling very good emotionally to get up and try and inspire people. I'm like, I just don't want to do it. So I'm fascinated by your speaking courses. What's that about?
Yeah, so we have a podcast called Expert Speaking Made Simple. And if anyone out there is either finding the performance side of having to public speak, if you dread standing up and speaking in front of your clients, then there are some podcast episodes on that. But more often than not, what they're actually about is the type of thing that you were offered. Like, you're offered this big speaking opportunity. How much do you charge? How do you get with an agent? You know, how does it all work, this whole speaking business? And it's a very lucrative business. Speakers get paid a lot of money. And it's kind of a bit of a mystery to get into. So that was why we started the podcast, to try and demystify some of that mystery around the speaking industry. And we were getting emails, you know, every week. Oh, how did you get onto the speaking circuit? How do you do this and that? And we were the same reply every time, blah, 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 you know, emailing back. And I thought, this is ridiculous. The information's not out there. So let's put together some courses, and we'll be opening the enrollment on those again in a few months' time. So, but yeah, do check out the podcast, or if you head to yourspeakingcareer.com, then you can find out more about what we do to help speakers there.
Perfect. What is it that drives you to sort of spread this message and do the work that you do you think?
I think a lot of it comes down to spending the first 25 years of my life feeling like, or being very aware that I was completely underachieving. And I think it's funny, isn't it, how just a few instances in early life can really impact you forever. I had an English teacher who told me once, in front of the whole class, she said, you'll never pass your English GCSE, so our English qualification that you do around kind of 15, 16. And then she said, your life will amount to nothing. And I suppose that held me back for a lot of years. I had this complete mind mess up around the fact that I wasn't very intelligent. And the Atlantic proved to me that I could achieve so much more. And and I thought, gosh, so many more people must be in this position, you know, where somebody said something or something's happened and you're trapped. It's really hard to break out of those limiting beliefs you've set for yourself. And I suppose I in the last few years that thinking has evolved in wanting to help people to live intentionally rather than accidentally. You know, we accidentally fall into this way of life because of these few incidents we've had in our past. And then we're on this treadmill. And I think there's a huge amount of joy to be had, even on the treadmill, even every day at work. But when we live accidentally and we just let it happen to us rather than intentionally grabbing it and saying, where is the joy in this moment today? We miss out on so much. You know, there's this slice of heaven here on earth that we could be having. It doesn't have to be the day we retire or the day we die. You know,
or when I get this.
I get this, it will be this. And it's that desire to spread that message, to see and hear from people who have made that shift and have started to live intentionally. That really drives me, and it probably drives everyone in the companies that I work for mad, because, you know, we've got lots of other goals, but for me that's the thing I'm really passionate about. It's the thing that's in my heart, I suppose, and rather than in my head, and I can't let go of it.
It's a keep doing it. It's phenomenal. Mary says, so inspired by your self-belief and strength. Mary, you're going to get a copy of the book. Woo, woo, woo. And then just seeing if we've got any more comments. We've got a lot of awesome people commenting all the time. But some people are shy. Haley says, wait, did we already read this? Yep. They jump around. The comments jump around, so I can't keep up with them all the time.
I think Mary, it's funny that people are putting about, you know, being inspiring or living the life you desired. I think it's probably important to say that I'm like the furthest from being Superwoman that you can imagine, you know.
What? You're Deborah Warrior Princess.
Yes. I have to really work at this stuff. Like, I'm not the kind of person that leaps out of bed in the morning, you know, full of the joys of spring. I do find those people quite irritating, because I'm not that way. And I have to really work at this mindset stuff, because I want to push myself outside my comfort zone, because I experienced the benefits during the row. And I know in order to do that, I'm going to have to keep using these attitude tools to make that path possible for me.
I agree with you. And it's like, I do struggle in the morning, and I don't want to, there's people that look up to me, for example, and I want to be honest and say, like, I appreciate it, but I struggle. It's not like all sunshine and thing. Like, I'm struggling, I'm working. And in some respects, I'm like, does that bring people down? I'm like, no, it's the truth. It's like, it's not just superhuman people that are always, we all have our experiences. One of the last questions I wanted to ask you is, when was there a time, or the last time, or a recent time, where you struggled with something and how you overcame that? Oh yeah, I'm excited. What's this? Tell me.
It was actually this morning, because
cool.
as you know, I've had this awful weekend. I flew back from the US at the end of last week, and I left my laptop on the plane. And I'm like, if you run businesses, your laptop is like, you know, everything. My life is in that laptop. And then I somehow seem to pick up this vomiting bug from the plane as well. So I have had this miserable weekend, and I felt really awful this morning. And I knew we were going to do this interview, and I was like, how can I do it? I don't have a laptop. I feel awful. I look dreadful. You know, it was just one of those mornings. Yeah. And for me, you know, there's really simple strategies. It's the choosing your attitude. This morning, one of the things that actually helped the most was I have a playlist called my Memory Songs playlist. And we've all probably got these, where if you think about a song that instantly brings back a phenomenal memory. So I've got this playlist of memory songs, and you know, I've got a song that my kids loved one summer when we were on holiday, and the Girls' Night Out song we always sing and dance to. And you know, these songs that when I listen to them, they instantly take me back to that moment and make me feel happy. And on days like this morning, I have to put my Memory Songs playlist on. And, you know, it cost me a tiny amount of dollars to put that list together. But it's what I tend to do most mornings is put on these memory songs, because if you put the news on, It's so depressing at the moment.
Oh, yes.
And it has a big impact on your mindset. If you put your memory songs on, you know, within seconds, I'm like dancing around the room and I'm singing along, and I feel like a completely different person all of a sudden. So it's finding these little tools and triggers that work for you, that I think keeps us nudging towards these goals and making this morning into a night like tonight, which is great. And I'm really happy to be here and feeling much better now.
Yes, I was going to say, I wouldn't even know that you were being sick all morning. You look and sound great. So they work, guys. The morning songs work. Awesome. Well, everybody, that is it. We're giving Debra's book, The Journey: How to Achieve Against All Odds, to Oleo, Carrie, Saba, Mary, and Haley. So thank you guys for being awesome and engaged and sending us messages. You can get the link by following the link. It's Debra's Life Upgrade Guide, and that was all about setting goals that she spoke about at the beginning of the Facebook Live, to kind of set yourself up so that you know where you're going, basically. So I'm going to be using that too. But Debra, just thank you so much for your time. Even in the little time that I've known the work you do, it's already helped me immensely, and so I look forward to doing the guide and everything. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me here. And I'm loving being part of this colourful duo. And
we are so good. I wish everyone I interviewed had style like you, because we would look amazing.
I'm sad to close it down, because just looking at us is cheering me up.
I know. It's like we're a proper professional thing. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for everybody. And I will see you soon. Debra, thanks again.
Bye.